C is a teenage girl forced to live and work in space alongside her father Damon. Despite her young age, she knows and can do a lot, as the man teaches her everything he knows and can do himself. In the evenings, he tells her stories about her long-dead mother, whom the girl doesn't remember. One day, Damon informs her that their contract is coming to an end, which means they'll soon be able to return to Earth. But first, they must complete one final mission. After preparing the necessary equipment, they take a break before the challenging workday ahead. At dawn, C and Damon detach from the cargo starship and begin their descent to the planet in an escape pod. However, during the descent, an unexpected accident occurs. Due to the planet's dense atmosphere, the capsule experiences technical malfunctions, causing the braking engines to fail, and the pod veers off course. Despite the complications, they manage to land, but end up far from the designated extraction site. The pair find themselves in the middle of a virgin forest on a planet that's strikingly similar to Earth. But now they must act quickly, as they only have a few hours to complete their task and return to the technical ship, which is preparing for departure. The situation is further complicated by the poisonous dust in the air, making it necessary to wear spacesuits while moving through open terrain. Father and daughter set off and soon discover an abandoned mining site not far from their landing zone. Damon uncovers fatally toxic living organisms that hide rare gemstones, orlac, but extracting them requires skill and the use of acid, which is extremely dangerous. Still, the value of these stones is so high that it would more than cover Damon's debt and provide a comfortable life for the two of them. However, Damon is not one to settle for little. He has information about a place called the Queen's Lair, where even larger gems can be found, ones that could make them millionaires and solve all their problems once and for all. C doesn't like the idea and begs her father to return to the landing module to catch the departing ship rather than wait for the next transport. But Damon, blinded by the illusion of wealth, ignores his daughter's pleas and insists on heading toward the original landing site. And so the family sets out on their way. As they move through the forest, C lags slightly behind, fascinated by the surrounding flora, when she hears her father's voice over the comm. She quickly realizes that he has encountered two armed strangers in the thicket. The girl hides in nearby vegetation and watches the situation unfold. The strangers turn out to be fellow treasure hunters, and they begin searching Damon, hoping to rob him, but the stones aren't enough for them. A man who introduces himself as Ezra demands to know the location of their descent capsule. He pushes Damon to the ground and looms over him, threatening violence. Damon then makes a counteroffer, telling them about a new and exceptionally rich orlac deposit located in the Queen's Lair. He claims to have been hired by some strange folks who arrived on the planet with a convoy and accidentally stumbled upon the treasure. However, these mercenaries lack the expertise needed to properly extract the gems, since orlac simply evaporates if handled incorrectly. Damon proposes that, instead of working for the mercs, the men take the fine for themselves. Ezra agrees, and when Damon suggests splitting everything 50-50, Ezra reminds him that there are actually three of them. Seizing the moment, Damon contacts C and tells her to retrieve his weapon and follow them, waiting for the right moment to kill the strangers. He instructs the girl to fire exactly 2 shots, no more, or things could go very badly for him. C struggles to accept the task, but ultimately confirms her readiness to follow through. She tracks the 3 men and soon finds the rifle her father left behind. Meanwhile, the men emerge from the forest and stop to rest. Ezra, apparently starting to trust Damon, questions him with interest about the mercenaries, whom he hasn't seen in a while, though they are known for their brutality and ruthlessness. Taking advantage of the moment, C jumps out of hiding and points her weapon at the strangers, giving Damon the opportunity to snatch Ezra's weapon. Ezra stares at the girl in shock, realizing he has clearly underestimated his opponents. Damon orders the men to sit down and not provoke him to shoot. C urges her father to leave quickly, but Damon is intent on robbing the men first. He opens a small case but doesn't have time to enjoy the find. Ezra's silent partner suddenly attacks him. Damon manages to kill the attacker but suffers a fatal wound in the process. C is left alone, facing an armed opponent. Unable to reload her weapon in time, she runs when Ezra points his gun at her. After assessing the situation, Ezra finishes off the still-living Damon. Meanwhile, hiding in the forest, C reflects on her situation and decides to return to the pod. However, due to a malfunction, she is unable to launch toward the transport ship. She spends several hours trying in vain to repair the damaged module. Eventually, she allows herself a short break with a snack, though food supplies are running dangerously low. The girl plays some music, hoping to distract herself from thoughts of her father. But suddenly, she hears a suspicious noise suggesting someone has broken in. Grabbing the rifle, C wounds Ezra in the shoulder as he appears. The man tosses the rifle aside, removes his helmet, and asks for a med kit. C pretends to look for it, then seizes his pistol from the weakened prospector. She points it at him, intending to avenge her father's death. However, before pulling the trigger, she tries to strike a deal. His life in exchange for his ship. Ezra, having received the medkit, treats his wound and then reveals he has no ship. The truth is, his team had contracted a local infection after landing on the planet. Now they're gone, and returning to the ship is no longer an option. Their only chance at survival is to work together. He proposes sticking to Damon's original plan, offering to help the mercenaries in exchange for a place on their ship. Ezra reminds her that if she were to go there alone, he couldn't guarantee her safety. But if they go together, he can protect her, and they'll both get what they want. He also expresses regret over causing her father's death, but says Damon brought it on himself by trying to steal his gems. Ezra insists he acted in self-defense and claims that Damon would have done the same in his place. Besides, C killed Ezra's partner, so now they're even. With no other choice, C reluctantly agrees to the stranger's proposal. After linking into C's air filter, Ezra and C head toward the Queen's lair. During their journey, Ezra tells her about the poisonous rats that attacked their ship and caused the crew's death. He tries to learn her name, but C remains wary, never lowering her weapon. Soon, Ezra's wound begins to torment him, and he grows weak. Suddenly, they spot a satyr hiding in the bushes, one of the native tribe that has settled on the planet. Ezra orders the girl to lower her weapon and insists they must visit the satyrs, as pollen had entered his wound, causing infection. He hopes they might have medicine or bandages. Upon arriving at the satyr village, Ezra asks for help, but the satyrs demand they leave their weapons outside. C and Ezra are forced to comply and hide them in the forest. Once they return, they are granted entry into the chief's house, where they meet his son. The chief explains that he too came here in search of Orlok, but became infected and nearly died. However, after recovering, he gains certain abilities, something the materialist from space cannot understand. His son plays music for them, while Ezra is given a healing juice that neutralizes the effects of the pollen. But Ezra isn't satisfied. He asks for more juice to rinse the wound, as well as bandages and filters, offering compensation in return. Unexpectedly, the clan chief proposes an alternative deal. He provides Ezra with everything he asked for, and even some valuable gems. In exchange, Ezra must leave the girl with them. According to his vision, the girl must be reborn. They recently lost their mother figure, and without a new woman, their community will perish. Unable to withstand the pressure, C bolts from the tent, fighting off the chief's son who tries to stop her. She retrieves her weapon and flees into the forest. C wanders among the trees for a long time. When she finally stops to rest, she discovers a plant that releases hallucinogenic spores. Soon, she stumbles out to the forest edge and nearly collapses from exhaustion. At that moment, Ezra makes a broadcast, calling out to anyone who might hear his message and asking for help. C follows the direction indicated and soon finds a tent hidden in the thicket, where she comes face to face again with her father's killer. He offers her food and hands her a pistol, trying to convince her that he means no harm. Ezra tells C that after she escaped, the satyrs refused to help him and denied him access to the medicine he needed. He then confesses that he failed to properly treat the wound and it became badly infected. Without amputation, he won't survive. He begs the girl to help him. When she questions him, he insists he never intended to give her away. Ezra hands C the tools she needs to perform the operation and teaches her how to use it. After numbing the arm, they begin the amputation. The girl completes the task quickly, explaining that her experience comes from working on a farm with her father, where she used to butcher animals. Then she cleans the wound and applies a bandage. The next day, they set off once again toward the Queen's lair. Along the way, a conversation begins to blossom between them. The two slowly grow closer and begin to build trust. C tells Ezra about her favorite novel, which she's trying to recreate from memory after losing the book. She writes down what she remembers and sometimes adds her own ideas. The novel is becoming something of her own creation. It's like she's transported to that world and lives a different life there. The girl also recalls her father's words, how he believed reading was a waste of time and pushed her to focus on practical skills that would be useful in real life. And now she thinks maybe Damon was right. If she trained more with weapons, maybe her father would still be alive. Ezra doesn't like the way the conversation is going, but he gently tells her she shouldn't think like that and can't blame herself for what happened. At last, she tells him her name. That night, they arrive at the Queen's lair, where a group of black market gem traders is waiting. Ezra asks C to stay out of sight while he negotiates, worried about how he'll manage the work with only one hand, since Orlok extraction is extremely difficult even with two. As they approach the camp, they spot a man tied up in a glass cage. Ezra introduces himself as a prospector and apologizes for the delay. The leader expresses his frustration and demands that he start digging immediately, but Ezra insists on renegotiating their deal. Since they lost their pod, they now want seats on the trader's shuttle as payment. The answer is no. C tries to interject, bluntly stating that if that's the case, they won't extract the Orlac. Ezra stops her and attempts to bargain, but all his offers are rejected. The shuttle is full of loot, and no one's going to unload it for a couple of unwanted miners. C tries to explain how to optimize the shuttle's layout using technical tricks, but the mercenary leader's assistant sharply tells her to shut up and do her job. But now Ezra stands his ground. Either they get seats, or the traders dig the stones themselves. The female mercenary lunges at C and knocks her to the ground, but Ezra doesn't back down. The mercenaries have already wasted a lot of time here and risk missing their only transport. Either they save them or they leave empty-handed. One of the crew suggests dumping the auxiliary module. The captain agrees, which greatly upsets his woman, and orders Ezra to begin digging. As they head toward the excavation site left behind by a previous prospector who died due to inexperience, Ezra notes the strange method of execution used on the man in the glass cube. He's told the man was sent in a pod covered in pollen as a disgraced warrior, but it's none of his business. Reaching the dig site, Ezra begins extracting the gems. C helps as best she can. However, due to his missing arm, Ezra accidentally damages one gem, and then a second. An angry mercenary prepares to kill them, and C, clumsily but bravely, tries to extract the Orlac herself. But during the process, the gem liquefies. Realizing the situation has become critical, the duo decides to act first. When the guard turns to alert the others, Ezra lunges and kills him. They flee into the forest. When another mercenary catches up, they manage to kill him as well. Ezra tells C to split up and hide in the forest while he takes care of the last pursuer, a woman. At first, she overpowers him, but he manages to twist away and stab her. Still, he's wounded in the struggle. C tries to help, but Ezra urges her to run. She returns to the camp to grab the med kit, where she encounters the last of the black market crew, who fires a shotgun at her, but misses. Suddenly, the man trapped in the glass cage, now freed, kills the shooter with a rock. Taking advantage of the moment, C finds the med kit and rushes back to Ezra to give him first aid. She then lifts him up and helps him reach the pod. On their way, they again encounter the dying prisoner. He shows no aggression, only silently watches them as they pass. The heroes take their seats in the pod and launch, making it aboard the transport ship just in time before it departs the planet. The film's spirit is reminiscent of early 20th century science fiction literature. The plot is extremely simple, but the execution is rich in atmosphere. Overall, the movie feels like a space western, lone prospectors, gangs, mercenaries, wandering across vast natural landscapes, gun duels, and even an allusion to Native Americans. Don't expect any major revelation. It's a straightforward and cinematic story with well-crafted main characters.